Hey, how are you doing? Welcome back. It's been a little while since I posted something. A lot of my time has been focused on our new YouTube channel. Check it out. It's called The Spotty Dotty Show. This is just a thumbnail from one of the popular episodes that we have. And I'm not expert when it comes to Photoshop, but I know some people like to have really cool thumbnails. So in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to do that. So this picture, I would highly suggest that you ask whoever's taking a picture of their kid or of their spouse or of anything that it's in really good quality. Okay, as you can see, they're all like different, but I'm gonna teach you how to make the border around it. So this is a picture of my kids and my wife. So I'm gonna speed this thing up, but before I do, I'm gonna show you a few different curves and techniques that I use to get through this really fast. So right now I'm using the pen tool, okay, and this is the last point I have. So I don't want to create a straight line from here to here because it's not curved, so I try to look at, you know, the heel, right? Look at the curve and then a straight line. So I'll click right here, drag, that's my curve, and then there's my straight line, and then I try to get right on the pixels, like right there. And then remember, if you think that you messed up, you can always go back. So this is could be a straight line, and that's a curve. So you can left mouse click and drag, and you got these little handles like this. So I always try to make sure that this handle that's facing north is facing the same angle as this shape I want it to go around. So click here for a straight line, left mouse click and drag, click. And sometimes when I'm feeling a little bit lazy or I want to go faster, I just create a bunch of small points around the shape. But what I have noticed is that it does slow down my computer. So less points would be better. So I would recommend that you use a mixture of straight lines, like I just used there, and then left mouse click and hold to create your curve lines on really long areas of your subject. So right around here, and this is a curve, so I can go straight, left mouse click and curve that, straight line here, and I'll just use a bunch of small points, and 3 points here. A lot of the technique is just from trial and error, and also my background in Maya when creating low poly geometry. You know, you never really want to have a lot of vertex points when you're starting off modeling something, so I kind of look at the curvature of her hand and of all of these shapes as the same way. Alright, is there a reason why I didn't use this one, right, like the anchor point? Probably be cleaner, right? So anchor point makes it faster. And that edge looks a little funky, so it's alright. So I'll try to go as fast as I can. I'm actually going to speed this up. Okay, so this is your history, and it can be found right here. Okay, it's also, if you can't see it, you can just go to Windows, turn on the history, and back here, so I'm actually holding spacebar, left mouse click to drag, and you can see as I do this, it's going to go back a few steps. Now it doesn't have every single move I did. If I do that, then look, there's absolutely nothing on there. So the history only records a certain number of actions. So it's really important that if you do mess up, just go back into your history, and so this takes me back to where I was before, you see. So different starting points. Another thing I think I stressed out earlier was just the combination of using straight lines and curves. And since it's just going to be a border around her, it's really not as important, and I'll show you on this particular one. You could see areas here where it was a straight line, and maybe this area was a curve, and it does give it a little different flair to it, a little different style, curves and straights. If you want to have perfectly curved lines around it, then by all means knock yourself out and use the handles. But I think for the most part, this is something that's going to be catching someone's attention. So color values, I think of the outline of that line, right? I think color values are things that we also should pay attention to. It's not so much of, wow, I didn't get that perfect curve, or I didn't, define his ear perfectly, or, get the brim of his hoodie. All right. And then with the hair, I know that it's going to be like 13 pixels wide when we create the line around it. So I'm not really worried about all of the little transparent pixels there. All right, so try to get as close as you can to the subject and the background. We're actually going to turn this into a selection and then grow it and do a few other things. So this is my wife, my kids. We started our Spotty Dotty Show channel. I think we have about 10 videos, somewhere around there, and just trying to get the numbers up. So if you guys could please support us, like, subscribe, and share with your friends and family during this time that we're living in, where a lot of us are consuming a lot of content. This is for toddlers, but it's also for adults if you enjoy a good message. So I'm going to go ahead and speed. Whenever I get to a 90-degree angle or anything, I try not to use the curve very much, like a big long handle, because you could see what it's doing to that shape. So if I press Control Z, you can just create a straight line, or just create a small handle. You see? And create a small handle there, and then continue with your straights. And then this kind of area here, it's a lot of folds, overlays, undulations of the clothing, whatever you want to call it. And then we go to some softer parts of the face. Remember, the human anatomy and clothing and stuff like that is a mixture of curves and straights. Look at some of your favorite cartoon characters, or just geometry sculptures, and it's just a beautiful blend between the two. So don't be afraid that, again, your pen tool doesn't show all of your curves. And all right, so I'm gonna speed this part up, but when it comes to hair, I'm not trying to get every single little curl because I'm going to make that border really thick, so it's going to cover some of that stuff. But if you want to get some of the curls or whatever, then I would suggest that you don't worry too much about the really nice, see how it's starting to get slower when I create the smaller points. Okay, so just get as close as you can to the natural shape of the hair. I'll go ahead and fast forward this part since the computer's a little laggy. Now, I know sometimes when you're using the pen tool and you're trying to figure out which direction to turn this, you could see as I drag this guy up, this curve, if I click over here, the second point, it does this S shape. That's because this handle here is facing the wrong direction. And you see I just clicked up there and I'm trying to move this handle and it creates another point, so we kind of got ourselves in a jam. That's why we have the history. But let's just say you didn't want to go through the history, you can always go over here to your direct selection tool, click on the center of that anchor, move it into place, and then rotate that anchor, that handle, so that it makes sense. So let's just kind of move it into place. I'll fix that point there. And there are two parts of the handle. You can see there's a short part for the front, and there's another long part here for the back. So just make the one in the back shorter. My bad, I feel like I should have told you this a little earlier. Okay, so to begin, I'm going to click back on my pen tool. Alright, start again. There you go. And then I'm going to click on that point just to activate it, and then continue. And I don't like that point there, so I'll make it straight. And I could fix that by going again to that direct selection, clicking that, and then changing the handle, dragging it in. Go back to my pen tool. The shortcut for a pen tool is P. Alright, so I'll click here to activate it, and then continue with my shape. So we're almost finished. If you've watched my videos and you subscribed to this channel before, thank you again. I appreciate it so much. It definitely means a lot to me and the whole crew. But if you haven't subscribed, think about it. Alright, you finished thinking about it? Now go ahead and click on that button at your leisure. Alright, no pressure. But please do check out our new channel. I'm super excited about how far we've come. If anyone's channel, especially if you're kind of amateur at some areas, is only going to get better when you look at it. So a lot of our earlier content, you know, some things I didn't get right when it came to, say, like lighting or audio. So please forgive me. But we are definitely getting better, and this channel is called Spotty Dotty Show, so please check that out. Please like and subscribe with your whole family. We appreciate you. So now I'm coming to the final part of this, and I just want to get it done. And there's not a whole lot of curves or folds in his pants, so I'm just making really long points, as you can see. And now it's time to close this. So let's go all the way over. So now we're going to close this. So when you hover over that point, that's to close it. So left mouse click, and voila. So I'm going to press Control and 0 to zoom out. And it's a very, very faint line. I don't want to click anything else. So if you hold Control and press the plus sign, minus sign, it zooms in, zooms out. Hold Shift, left mouse click, and drag, and it does this. All right. So this is our original layer here. And if you just brought an image into Photoshop, it will probably say background. So I always like to double click on that background layer, press OK, so it says layer 0. And I duplicated this. So to duplicate, you right mouse click, duplicate layer, and as you can see, it's layer 0 copy is not active. I'm just going to rename this by double clicking and call it BG for background. I'll double click this one and call it family, like so. Now with the family layer selected, I'm going to click on my direct selection, right mouse click, just anywhere, you see, right mouse click anywhere, and go to make selection, feather radius is 0. If I change that to like 4, you could see that it's not as sharp. So let me press Control Z to undo. Make selection. I like to change the feather radius to 0 pixels, and it's as close as it can be to the original shape that I drew. All right. I'll press Control 0 to zoom out. So it has a selection of my family, and that's the layer I have selected. So what I want to do is turn this off, turn the background layer on, select the background layer, and then press delete. So now family is gone, and what I'm remaining left with is the background. Okay, and then I'll turn this off, click on the family, turn that layer back on, and I want to invert the selection. So I want to keep my family, but I want to delete the background. So I'll hold Control Shift I, and now you can see that the selection is not on the family but on the background, and then I press delete. So family is on their own layer. Okay, perfect. And there's this in the background here. It's not really bothering me. If you wanted to delete that, then you would do the same exact process before making the selection. You would actually use a pen tool. Okay, so we just inverted the selection. What I want to do is go to Control Shift I, so that the selection is back on my family, on family layer, and I want to grow this selection so that I can create that kind of border. So first thing that we need to do is go to Select, Modify, Expand. All right, so it says 2 pixels. If we did that, you could see that when we press Control plus sign, hold Shift, left mouse click, you can see that it only grew a little bit, and if we colored that in, it's not going to be very, it's not going to pop. So I go back to Select, Modify, Expand, and then I'll grow that by 10. A little bit bigger, but it's still not consistent with that. So let's increase it a little bit more. So select, modify, expand, and yeah, let's keep it 10. Let's see. It's kind of big. I'll go down a few, and let's make that like 5. Oops. Let me press Control Z, and let's go back to, let's go contract. So which means goes back. So by 5, and that looks good. Alright, so contract means to go closer to the subject, and expand means to go further away. Perfect. So now we have this. We're going to create a new layer. There's two ways of creating it. You click on this little floppy thing here. It creates a layer. There's layer 1, or you can go up here to layer, new layer. Alright. So we have layer 1. Let's double click on it, rename it to color. And I'm going to move color, left mouse click and hold, bring it in between family and background. And so now all we need to do is fill this in. So you have a bunch of colors that you can use, and I'm actually going to turn on my background so I can see what colors are going to help bring or separate my subject, my family, from the background. And let's find a few colors. So I never really land on the perfect one. The shortcut for your paint bucket tool is G, and you could see that this is like a gradient, but there's a little arrow. So if I right mouse click on that arrow, go to paint bucket tool, or you can just, sometimes you can just hold it down, but it's fine. There's a paint bucket, so right mouse click on it, paint bucket tool, and we have the color layer selected. And if I click, there you go. So we can use different values to help them pop off of that wall. You could use yellow, but I think it's a little bit too much, too close. That actually looks good. Scrub through the colors, see which ones really speak to you, get your attention. You could always use an eyedropper. Right, so here's an eyedropper, and maybe sample colors from, you know, your subject. What if it's like that little neon? You see, it pops up there. Let's go back to paint bucket, and it's not bad. Actually, looks pretty cool. So I like it, and I'm going to deselect this. So we're going to go to edit. I never really do it this way. So to deselect, where are you? Right there. So select, deselect. I always press Control D. Kind of get used to my shortcuts. So that's what we have. Now this area right here is kind of bothering me a little bit. So I'll go back in by holding Control +, and I'm going to click on my family layer, press P for the pen tool, and try to do this really fast. So that's looks like a straight line to me. That's 2 points, and then left mouse click and drag. And then, so this is a curve. So again, the machine's a little slow right now. I've got a few other programs running, so my apologies. So it's a straight line, that's a curve. And then I'm just kind of using the lazy method. Wait for it to catch up. And I don't know if that's going to really be visible, so I won't worry about it. I'll click one time over here, and then I'll left mouse click and drag to create a really long arc. You see? So that's the wrong direction if I do that way. And remember, the closer, the shorter the angle. So I want to try to get this to form on that line, to follow that line. I'll click one point here, and then one more right there. Cool. So I'm going to ask you a question. How do I get the selection tool? What's the shortcut? Maybe I didn't teach you a shortcut. This is your selection tool. Kind of giving you the hint, the clue, the answer. Press A, shortcut tool. Right mouse click, make selection, click on OK. And now that we have the selection, we'll click on that family photo. We'll press delete. And there we go. Hold spacebar, left mouse click and drag, and I'll get this negative space here. So we have to turn off this selection by pressing Control D. We'll press P one more time, and let's get the negative space. So there's straight lines in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now that we've closed that path, press A shortcut for your direct select. Right mouse click. And it doesn't have to be on that line, okay? It could be all the way over here. Make selection. Feather radius 0. Anti-aliasing is turned on, which is like the stair-stepping pattern that you see here, where those transparent pixels are. Just makes it smoother. Alright, press OK. It's on. Press the delete key. Control D. And then we're going to press Control and 0. And there we go. So that's the basic outline that I really enjoy. If we turn off this layer, you could see the silhouette of my family. Turn that back on. And now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it with words. So we'll just type in mask. All right, we'll just. So after looking at this section, I realized that it doesn't look the best. So there are a few ways that we can go about fixing this. If in your history you can go back, then that would be perfect. But as you can see in mine, I can't go back. All right, and so this doesn't really cause a problem. There's two ways that we can do. I can use the eraser tool. So if I press E, there's eraser. If I right mouse click, I want to use a hard brush and maybe make it a little bit smaller. And so I'll click right on my color layer. So actually then click there. So Control Z. I'll click on my color layer and then I'll erase. But now there isn't anything behind here. So as you look at my screen, you're probably wondering what happened to that little area, and I realized that I wanted to create a border, but I ended up deleting the entire thing and didn't do the expand. If I wanted to create a border here, there are a few different ways of doing it. I can erase this section by pressing E, going to my color, and so E is the eraser. I'll go to my color layer, and you're going to notice that as soon as I start to erase, it's going to be transparent, and that's because that's what's behind it. Okay? So whenever you get into a situation like this, let's go back. It's good to improvise. So we're going to use, or I'm going to use, a picture of the coronavirus that a buddy of mine modeled. Okay, so I'll just take this little dude here, I'll Control C, and then I'll bring it into here, Control V, and did it go? No, it didn't. Let's try it again. Let's make this a little bit smaller. And with this layer selected, it says virus, so I'll left mouse click, drag and drop it onto this layer. Close this because I'm no longer using it, and there's my little virus dude. So I can make him smaller. If I want to make it smaller, I press Control T, and then you see you have 3, 6, 7, 8 little squares. If I click and drag, then it's going to freeform transform it. If you press Control Z, goes back to normal shape. Hold shift, and that's actually going to make it smaller. So I like it, but I want to flip it. Okay, so if you double click here, all right, and you simply go to image rotation, and then you want to flip it horizontally. But now it moves the entire canvas. So instead, let's press Control T again on that layer, and it tells me that the width and the height are at 100%. I'm just going to change the width to be a -100, and there you go. Press Enter, double click. So now this guy is perfect, right direction, and you can change the scale. We won't really worry about that. The most important thing that I found when it comes to creating these thumbnails is not only putting a cool, catchy, color or outline behind your characters or subject matters, is you definitely want to make sure that they're interesting, right? That they're smiling, or that they just convey whatever emotion that you are trying to portray to the audience, that you're trying to get their attention. And the second thing is coming up with a catchy phrase. Okay, so with this particular image here, it says coronavirus, and then it says a message for all kids, the kids in the world. All right, so I'm going to come up with something catchy as well, and I'll go to my text tool. All right, and then my text tool, we're just going to click on it and click anywhere, and when that pops up, the text I like to use is AR Sena, and then it's 90, so we can call it, can't really see it, let me change the alignment so it goes from left to right. We'll call it the Rona mask for kids. And I like to make sure that the beginning of each word is capitalized. Now this color is pretty terrible, so I can double click in here. All right. Or I can simply left mouse click and drag all the way across. And make it cool hair. All right, so we can change the color to, let's say, maybe red. All right, I'll make it red. It doesn't look red now. You just have to click on your selection tool, your move tool, and there you go. Make sure it layers there. Here's the Rona mask. So it says the Rona mask for kids. If we want to make it a little bit bigger, then we can click on this layer, press T, and then maybe just highlight for kids, and then press Control X to cut. I'll go back to my move tool to deselect that layer. I'll press T, which is a shortcut for the text. I'll click over here somewhere, and then all right, for kids. Okay, so we have this layer here, and then let's take this guy and move it over. Okay, so I'll take these two layers here, right mouse click, and I will click on rasterize text, and then I'll combine them. All right, so shortcut to merge, right mouse click on them, merge layers. All right. And then there's another method that I use, but I think this is probably the fastest way. I won't go into like smart tools, maybe for another video. So now this layer is selected, I'll press W, which is the wand tool, and I have this one here. It says Add Selection, and you'll understand why I'm using it in a second. So it's selecting the outside. I want to select the little insides here of the word itself. And now, oops, and let's get the E. Almost forgot that. We'll hold Control, Shift, and I to invert the selection. And we'll do the same exact thing that we did for the silhouette around the characters. We'll go to Select, Modify, Expand, and we'll expand that maybe 10 pixels. And that looks pretty cool. I like it. It has enough space in between. And then we'll create one more layer. So down here, and I'll take layer 2 and rename it. And I'll call it BG underscore title. And move this left mouse click and hold, drag it underneath. And now BG stands for background. So background title. You can name it whatever you want. Title underscore kids color. Sounds more confusing than before. So now we can maybe select white, and we want to press G, which is a shortcut for the paint bucket, and click. And there we go. Now if white doesn't really stand out, then you could use another color. Maybe use black. There we go. So Control D to deselect. And if I wanted to move the kids around, right, just that for kids, go to your move tool. But what you're gonna notice is that it moved that layer and it didn't move the layer underneath it. So Control Z to undo, hold Shift, and you can move both of those layers around. Or what I like to do is I like to create a group. So this is a group. I just left mouse click and drag and drop these guys in the group. And then you can always rename the group. So we can call this title. And there you go. So any sort of last minute adjustments, make sure you do that now. I'm just using the arrows on the keyboard to nudge it over. And that's it. So thanks for watching this. Please subscribe to DDA and to the Spotty Dotty Show. I appreciate all of the support. There will be a link in the description of the video to take you directly to the Spotty Dotty Show. You hope you guys have a wonderful day, be safe, and stay away from the Rona.